pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
When weather turns extreme,
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
Let's bring in.
We have cooperated fully. No documents with classified markings were found in Rehoboth today.
President Biden will meet with newly elected House Speaker Kevin McCarthy today.
The Democrats are united behind Ilhan Omar remaining on this committee.
Month after month after month, we have set records for migrants coming into the country.
Death by firearm is now the #1 cause of death for children.
Former UN ambassador and South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is preparing to announce her run for the presidency.
Congressman Mooney has one chance in the world against Joe Manchin.
Welcome to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarlane in Washington. We thank you for joining us on a very busy Wednesday. The meeting between U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden has wrapped up at the White House. A 90-minute meeting, a lot to break down there. But let's begin tonight with the FBI search of the president's vacation home in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware today. The president's personal attorney said no documents with classified markings were found during the search. The attorney said the search was done with the president's, quote, full support and cooperation. Today was also the first day on the job for new special counsel Robert Hur of Maryland, who's investigating the Biden documents controversy. And this search comes on the same day U.S. House Speaker McCarthy met with the president at the White House for that highly anticipated meeting on the country's debt ceiling. For more on all this and a lot more, we'll start with Ed O'Keefe and Nicole Killian, who join us. Ed is CBS News senior White House and political correspondent, and Nicole, CBS News congressional correspondent. Let's get to it. A lot to do today. Ed, let's start with the search at the Rehoboth Beach home. What are you hearing from the White House and from the president's advisors?
Lasted about 3.5 hours or so at the Rehoboth Beach home of the Bidens. This is their vacation home in that beachfront town, a favorite of the First Lady that they purchased back in 2017. The FBI was there under written agreement with the president's personal attorneys, and we were told no White House officials were present for today's search. They left with no classified documents, according to the president's attorney. But the FBI did take some other materials for further review, consistent with what they did at the president's primary residence in Wilmington, Delaware, a few weeks ago. Here at the White House, they're less concerned with the legality and the details of the investigation, instead focus more on the politics of this, reminding the American public yet again the president is cooperating and has been since November, a contrast, of course, with the former president, and something that this White House is mighty proud of having emphasized because they now have public opinion polling that shows most Americans agree the president is cooperating with this investigation, even as they disapprove of the fact that it happened at all.
Before we move on to other things, Ed, can you characterize how much time he spends at Rehoboth Beach? You know, it's a vacation city. It's a vacation home for him. Is this a place he commonly visits off-season?
Yes, actually. He's for a beach house. You know, they do go there more than many people who own a beach house might, just given the proximity and the fact that, you know, they've got some government aircraft they can use to get there. I'd say every about, 5 to 6 weeks, either he or the First Lady is spending time there in the off season. And in the summer, they spent a fair amount of time there. They spend less time there, though, at the height of the beach season, simply because where the house is located is not actually on the shore. It's on it's in a neighborhood off of a main drag, and so it's harder for the Secret Service essentially to move them around. But Wilmington certainly is where they spend almost every other weekend, and this one is definitely in the mix between Camp David, Wilmington, and Rehoboth. He's there pretty frequently.
Well, as the FBI returned from this search in Rehoboth Beach, the president was meeting with the speaker to talk about the debt ceiling. Nicole, this was eagerly anticipated. What's the latest state of play on debt ceiling from the Speaker or other members of Congress?
Well, you know, it was very interesting because the Speaker said that he had a good conversation with the president, that they talked for an hour, which is notable. You know, at least it sounds like both sides got their opinions on the table, and McCarthy said that he looks forward to continuing that discussion. Now, what exactly came out of the discussion still remains to be seen. The Speaker, again, continued to deflect questions about what, if anything, Republicans would cut, because, as you know, many Republicans are calling for spending reforms or spending cuts if the debt ceiling is raised. They don't want to do a clean vote on that, up or down. So every time the Speaker is presented with that question, he has not necessarily presented a direct answer, but often talks about just trying to eliminate waste and abuse. He has hinted in previous interviews, including with our Margaret Brennan, that defense could potentially be on the table, that there could be some room for cuts there if there's wasteful spending. But he's also talked a lot about discretionary spending, which is what we've also heard from many Republicans. Still, Democrats continue to ask, where is the Republican plan? So I imagine this will continue to be a pressing question going forward if, in fact, these talks do continue.
We did hear him use those phrases you hear early in a Washington standoff. Good conversation. We're going to find common ground. We're going to keep this going. Let's see if the acrimony ratchets up as we get closer to the deadline.
Too, that he said, they don't want to be up against the clock on this, and hopefully they can find a solution sooner rather than later. So again, we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Speaker McCarthy is juggling today as well, also dealing with some action on the House floor, including with committee assignments for Democrats. Explain where that is.
Yeah, so of course, actually both chambers are still in organizing mode. Some committees have been stood up, others have not. In the case of the House, of course, we know just yesterday there was a situation involving Congressman Santos where he recused himself from two committees. But there's also this situation involving Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who is from Minnesota, who has sat on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And so there has been a move to remove her from that committee. House Republicans are expected to put forward a resolution at some point. They are waiting for Democrats to officially name her to the panel first before they can move forward with that vote. But I did speak to Ranking Member Gregory Meeks earlier today about this, and here's what he had to say about the process.
I can tell you this, that the Democrats are united behind Ilhan Omar remaining on this committee, and I know I am, as the ranking member and former chair of this committee, is focused on trying to make sure that she continues on the committee, because she's been very active and brings a lot of thought to the committee. Don't agree with everything that she says, but there's a lot of people in Congress I don't agree with. But that should not be grounds of removing her from the committee.
So as you can see there, Democrats pretty firmly behind Ilhan Omar staying on the committee. The question is whether or not Republicans have the votes to actually remove her. And one interesting thing, too, that the congressman said is that this is really impeding their work. They can't stand this committee up until this situation gets resolved. So, he said, for instance, when it comes to classified briefings on issues, international issues, he can't get them right now because of all of this. So, unfortunately, the committee hasn't had an opportunity to get to its work, but there's hope that potentially this vote will move forward tomorrow in some capacity.
The committee's just trying to get out of the gates right now, and at a pretty sensitive time for U.S. foreign affairs. That committee wants to stand up. Ed, have you gotten a sense of where the relationship is at this moment in time between the president, between the White House, and a Kevin McCarthy or the House Republican Conference? Can you get a read on it yet?
A few things on this. First of all, if it's a good meeting, it will go longer than an hour. Part of the reason they had to wrap was that the president's about to hold an event thanking his chief of staff for 2 years of service and decades of service to the Biden cause. Ron Klain's on his way out by next week, and Jeff Zients is on his way in. It was supposed to begin at the top of the hour. But if it was going really well, they would have held off on that, right? So maybe this is just a first round of talks, and we'll see where it goes. Remember, these two used to spend time together on a semi-regular basis when Biden was vice president and when McCarthy was House Majority Leader. He would have him over to the vice president's residence every so often for breakfast. Sometimes McCarthy would bring other Republicans with him so that they could talk to the vice president. This was part of his role then as the number two to deal with legislative outreach and negotiating. And so they went into this meeting today not total strangers, but certainly two people who hadn't spent much time together in recent years, in part because the political dynamic didn't require them to be the two cutting deals. But the fact that the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who has been a longtime Biden collaborator on issues especially of a fiscal nature, the fact that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries weren't involved, who are, of course, like-minded and close Democrats to the president, is all of them saying, you two need to sort this out because it's the House Republican majority that's ultimately going to determine how quickly or how ugly this debt limit increase can be. And so that's why, at least today, this meeting commenced, and we'll wait and hear, since it just broke up a few minutes ago, who here at the White House continues talking to the Speaker's team. What does the Speaker go back and tell his caucus? And where does this head, again, with the goal, according to the Treasury Secretary, being early June to get this done?
That relationship defines so much. Ed O'Keefe, Nicole Killian,
Sure
good work.
Will.
Back to it. Thank you very much. The cause of gun reform continues to reverberate from California to the Beltway. Up next, we talk with Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy about what, if anything, all sides can agree on. You're streaming Red and Blue, reporting across the political divide.
Original documentary from CBS reports tensions rising between a powerful country and a vital island.
The supply of this technology came grinding to a halt. The world would grind to a halt.
Absolutely.
As Taiwan faces threats and aggression,
Taiwan is on the front line, and we understand our responsibility as a democracy. We cannot fall.
CBS News examines whether they can defend themselves.
Putin, Ukraine, China, Taiwan, there are manifestations of the battle between autocracy and democracy. And that is a fight that we're all engaged in.
Defending Taiwan, now streaming on the free CBS News app. When weather turns extreme,
States from the plains to the northeast are bracing for more than 2 feet of heavy snow.
Every second counts.
This is a monster winter storm.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
There's a wrinkle in the forecast, the accumulating ice.
You'll have time to get prepared.
Take precautions before you head out.
Feel the forecast on the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
Stories that inform.
You can be really old at 60, and you can be really young at 85.
Inspire.
How do we unlock the power within ourselves to be who we want to be?
And brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good. Always send the people home happy.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
The carnage in our nation's schools has become painfully repetitive.
Not one more child!
School shootings have parents fighting mad.
I promised my daughter I was going to fight. It's going to keep on happening.
And teachers taking lessons in how to fight back.
This is an exercise.
We approach it as it's you or them.
It shouldn't have to be your teacher's job to protect your life.
But will the battle over gun control,
People are afraid that they're going to lose their gun rights altogether.
be the hardest lesson of all?
The exercise, you're having to shoot at an adult. Are you prepared to have to kill one of your students?
Guns in the Classroom, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarland. Governor Gavin Newsom announced new gun safety legislation in California today following 2 recent mass shootings in his state. Meanwhile, here in Washington, Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania co-sponsored the reintroduction of the bipartisan Background Checks Act. Both addressed gun reform today.
National conversation in gun safety has been led by the state of California. Since 1989, the assault weapons ban leadership that emanated out of the state of California in 1994 with the national assault weapons ban by our own Senator Dianne Feinstein.
It's only a matter of time before this becomes law. We just want to make sure that it's sooner rather than later, because every day that passes by that this is not the law of the land, it's a day where more lives are put at risk unnecessarily.
Joining me now is a U.S. Senator who has worked for years on this issue, Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy. Senator Murphy, we know what the aspirations of some gun control advocates are. What do you think is realistic in this Congress at this moment in time?
We showed last summer that we now have the ability to pass gun safety reforms. 30 years, Congress did nothing, shooting after shooting, homicide after homicide. And in the summer of 2022, we passed 5 major changes to American gun laws, investing in red flag laws to keep guns away from dangerous people, making sure that no domestic abusers get guns, strengthening the background check system. I think we can make more progress. Is it harder now that Republicans are in charge of the House of Representatives? Absolutely. But we passed that bill last summer with Republican support, significant Republican support. I would love to pass an assault weapons ban. That's unlikely with Republicans in charge of the House of Representatives, but we could make some progress. We could raise the age to purchase an assault weapon to 21. We could require you to get a background check, at least before you buy one of these military-style weapons. There's a litany of things that are possible this year. And I just think the American public is fed up with the NRA, the gun lobby, owning Washington. They demand action. That's why we got something done last year, and that's why I have confidence we can get something done this year.
You just heard Republican Congressman Fitzpatrick talk about a universal background check law. If you had the ear of House Republicans, where would you tell them to start? What's the one thing you think could get off the ground in a Republican House that moves the meter or flies in the U.S. Senate?
Well, the reason why background checks is a good place to start is because it is wildly popular. I mean, you know, I'm not kidding. If you poll like apple pie and kittens, they don't poll as high as background checks do in this country. 90% of Americans think that everybody should prove that they're not a criminal or seriously mentally ill before they buy a gun, Republicans and Democrats. So to me, that is the holy grail. It's the most popular proposal. It is also likely the most impactful proposal because, you know, right now, Connecticut, we can't protect our citizens without a national background check law because all these guns get bought illegally in places without universal background checks like South Carolina or Georgia and get brought up to Connecticut. So that's still, I think, the sweet spot, popular and impactful.
Saw that the House Speaker and the President met today on the debt ceiling, according to the Speaker. I feel like Senate Democrats must feel like spectators at this show, or people in the audience versus people on the stage. How do you think this ends? What's the end game here?
I mean, I think this has got to end only one way. We pay our bills, and the Republican Party doesn't decide to hold the whole country's economy hostage in order to participate in an exercise that should be as simple as signing up and making your oath of office. You're a member of Congress. You pay America's bills. So I don't know what they discussed today. My position has been simple. This is not a subject for negotiation. If they want to talk about spending cuts, the Republicans do, well, guess what? We write a budget every single year. Let's negotiate spending cuts in the context of the federal budget instead of negotiating spending cuts with the sort of Damocles hanging over our head, the default on American debt.
I want to press you on that because that's certainly what Senate Democrats in the White House want to have happen. But how do you think this happens? House Republicans have been emphatic. They're not going to vote for a clean debt ceiling increase. Is there some cobbling together of House Democrats and Republicans that needs to happen?
I mean, America just watched the sort of hour-by-hour implosion of the House of Representatives. They couldn't even choose who should lead them. That's like the easiest choice you make. Everything else after that is more difficult. We have no idea what Republicans want in exchange for raising the debt limit. And what we suspect they want are things that are wildly unpopular. Raising the age for Social Security, cutting Medicare, a 30% national sales tax. I mean, it's crazy, some of the ideas that they have, but we're just guessing at this point. So we just can't negotiate with the House Republicans on this. Let's negotiate on their ideas in the context of a federal budget. Let's just decide to pay our bills.
You have been talking about border issues, and we note the House Judiciary Committee launched its committee for this Congress talking about border issues today. Where's the common ground there? Because both sides seem pretty polarized on this, and ultimately immigration is one of those things that needs a type of bipartisanship.
Well, you know, the tragedy here is that we did find common ground. In 2013, the Senate passed a bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform proposal, making sense of our population of undocumented citizens, letting them apply for citizenship, but also getting a lot tougher on the border. The Republicans who ran the House of Representatives at the time refused to take up that bipartisan bill. We'll try again at a bipartisan compromise, but my worry is that Republicans tend to look at immigration as a political issue, as an issue to sort of beat Democrats over the head with, not an issue that they actually want to solve. A bipartisan group of senators went to the border just a few weeks ago. I was part of that group. We're committed to trying to find common ground, but we've got to see some signal from these real radicals in the House of Representatives that they actually want a solution, not just a political cudgel.
Pretty unequivocal statement from those House Republicans. They're displeased with current border policy, so there's some fences to mend there. Senator Chris Murphy, it's a real busy day. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you.
If West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin might choose to run for re-election. If so, he could face the state's governor in the race. Ahead, my conversation with Republican West Virginia Governor Jim Justice. You're streaming Red and Blue.
An original CBS Reports documentary.
Yoga and wellness has become a place of anti-science.
Online clickbait.
The algorithms feed you content based upon your own fantasy.
Potentially at my peril.
There's no question about it.
Spreading digital disinformation.
Their entire yoga studio and spiritual community got so embedded in all of the QAnon stuff that it became a sick place.
Why pro-health people are fertile ground for anti-science messages.
We can just go into the whole mask thing. A lot of us just believe that's symbolism for silencing people.
People are locked in this mindset. They've been taught to accept what the medical doctors say.
No longer are you going to be willing to take any medical advice.
It's a big problem that we urgently need to address.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. An original CBS Reports documentary.
We need to put an end to this territorial status.
Will statehood create a better Puerto Rico?
So that we have the same quality of life that you see in the States.
What do you worry about?
Me living here in the future.
They're giving incentives to non-Puerto Ricans to come to Puerto Rico and extract our natural resources and take over our land.
Vacation in Puerto Rico, and in exchange for that, you don't pay taxes.
Why would I allow somebody who abused me for 123 years to then consume me?
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now. People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
After decades in the public eye and public service, this mother-daughter duo is now talking about gutsy women.
What's the gutsiest thing you've ever done?
We go person to person with Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
The best part of fame is making people feel good.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Scott McFarland. One of the most competitive U.S. Senate races next year could be in West Virginia. If he chooses to run again, incumbent Democratic Senator Joe Manchin will have to defend his blue seat in a state that former President Trump won by nearly 40 points in 2020. And West Virginia has a Republican governor, the man on the right, who was once a Democrat. This week, I traveled to his state to see if Governor Jim Justice might want to throw his hat in the ring against Joe Manchin. Here's part of that conversation. If Joe Manchin runs again, does that change your calculus at all?
Not any at all. And the reason I say that is because I don't say this egotistically, but if Joe and I were running today, I win.
Why are you so confident?
Because I know the people of West Virginia. I know where they are today. I know really and truly, where they've kind of been left in the dust. And I know that they really believe in me. And they trust me. And because, it's always really, really easy when you think, well, your people really love you. Well, never will your people really love you if they don't know you love them. And they know that from me. I don't want anything. I've never wanted anything. I drive myself every day on and on and on. And really, when it really boils right down to it, all I want is goodness for Toby and Edith, and I call our voters Toby and Edith because they absolutely get up every day, work hard, bring all kinds of goodness to our state and everything. And they need more, and I'm going to try to do it.
Lucky us, we're joined by CBS News political director Finn Gomez to talk about this. First of all, let me let you know, that was recorded in the Martinsburg City Library, which is an impressive place.
I've never been there, but I want to go.
Yeah, the governor's choice. Let's talk about this race. He's confident that he can win, says he's a sure shot to beat Joe Manchin. What are his odds? What are his prospects?
He's got quite a formidable opponent if he does jump in, but that would be one heck of a race there, Scott, between Governor Justice and Senator Manchin. If Manchin decides to run, Justice is a prolific fundraiser. He is, as you mentioned, he was a Democrat, but switched parties while Trump was in the White House, and is someone who has been a popular governor and has Republican support. So, I mean, it's West Virginia is very Trumpian and very, very Republican, as you know.
It'd be one of those real blockbusters if you have the two biggest names in any state running against each other for anything. Another possible candidate who's about to announce is Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley, yeah.
South Carolina governor on her resume. Trump's UN ambassador on her resume. That puts her face-to-face, though, with her former boss. Where does that go?
She will become, as we reported, CBS News, Aaron Navarro and myself confirmed that former Governor Haley is expected to announce on November 15th in Charleston, South Carolina. Nikki Haley, of course, is someone who, as you mentioned, was in Trump's cabinet. And since then, she's been on this short list for someone who's going to be a potential 2024 candidate, and it looks like it's going to be that way. She is someone who's not always agreed with President Trump when he was in his cabinet, but she did say, interestingly enough, and that in 2021, that she would not run for president if former President Trump was going to run again. Of course, he is running again, and she is still running. He was quick to point that out on a Truth Social post today. But she will be the second major candidate. And what could happen, Scott, was that there was this wait and see, waiting essentially for the likelihood of Governor DeSantis jumping in the race later this year. With her jumping in a little earlier than expected, it could accelerate the process of other potential rivals jumping in as well.
In the meantime, though, that's quite a binary choice if you have two declared candidates, one of them being former President Trump, one of them being Nikki Haley. The concentric circles of their political worlds have lots of overlap. One of them, presumably, would be South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, a vocal surrogate of Donald Trump's during the hardest times. And he's posted on social media about Trump relatively regularly. He's posted on social media about Nikki Haley as well. And where do those people in the middle come down? People who have, equity in both Nikki Haley's camp and former President Trump camp, like Lindsey Graham, as that tweet makes clear.
Not just Lindsey Graham, but the other senator who's also someone who's considering a 2024 White House run, and that's Tim Scott, who she appointed to when she was the governor of South Carolina. Of course, South Carolina being an early primary state, that's why it's so important, as you mentioned. And I think it does leave a few people in the middle of two potential South Carolinians running for president, and of course, former President Trump and likely Mike Pence and Ron DeSantis, all of whom are looking to do well in that early state. Of course, Haley has the background. She has the executive office experience. She was the governor of the Palmetto State. Will that give her an advantage? It's a little soon to tell, but it could.
As early as next week.
Yeah.
We talk about Trump's endorsements. On Truth Social today, he made his endorsement in the Indiana Senate seat race. Jim Banks, the conservative House member, gets Trump's endorsement today. And the field seems to have cleared for Jim Banks in a state that's known for its primaries and its competitive primaries. What do you make of that? And what do you make of Mitch Daniels, the former governor, not jumping in?
Scott, this was anticipated as a key primary battle between Mitch Daniels, who at one point was a potential White House aspirant and someone who was a popular figure in Indiana, and now Senator Banks, who is really becoming the
Congressman Banks.
Excuse me, Congressman Banks.
Want to button that up?
Wants to be Senator Banks, who is sort of part of this new connected to this new power regime in Congress, and is someone who's getting a lot of conservative support. Of course, you mentioned Trump, J.D. Vance yesterday, and others who have circled the wagons, and that became from a very highly anticipated matchup to one where it looks like it's going to be a little bit easier for Mr. Banks to get that to get that nomination.
Yeah, it's tough news for the people who take advertising money in the state of Indiana. They have the chance to break the bank on a big primary. Instead, it looks like maybe cheap.
Right.
Vin Gomez, thanks for your time.
It's good to see you, Scott.
Right back at you. Well, that does it for today. You can stream Red and Blue Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And a reminder, if you want to watch previous episodes of the program, you can see them anytime on the CBS News website. Just head to cbsnews.com/redandblue.